Have you ever wondered if the most brilliant mind in Western psychology was secretly obsessed with a forbidden map of the afterlife? Imagine a man who spent his life deciphering the dreams of the modern world, only to find the ultimate answer hidden in a tattered ancient scroll from the Himalayas. For decades, Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, guarded a secret that challenged the very foundations of European science. He discovered that the terrifying and beautiful visions described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead were not just religious myths, but precise descriptions of the human subconscious. He found a stage of wisdom so advanced that he called it Sophia, a state of being where the ego finally dissolves into what the Tibetans call the void. If you are ready to explore the radical intersection where modern psychology meets the forbidden science of the soul, subscribe now to Tibetan Wisdom Unveiled and hit the bell icon to join our community of seekers who are brave enough to look into the abyss. Before we journey deeper into these lost pages of history, I want to be completely transparent with you. This video has been created with the support of artificial intelligence for narration and visual production. However, the exhaustive research, the deep psychological analysis, the curation of these complex Jungian and Buddhist concepts, and the entire narrative structure are the result of 100% dedicated human work. My commitment is to provide you with profound, authentic, and high-quality content that honors both the scientific rigor of psychology and the spiritual depth of the Tibetan Dharma. The story begins in the early 20th century, a time when the West believed it had conquered the secrets of the physical world, but remained utterly lost in the darkness of the mind. Carl Jung was a man standing between two worlds. While his colleagues were focused on the surface of human behavior, Jung was staring into the depths of the collective unconscious. It was during this period of intense searching that he encountered a text that would change the course of his life. The Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Jung did not see this as a funerary manual for the deceased. Instead, he saw it as a guide for the living, a psychological map for anyone navigating the intermediate states of a spiritual crisis. Jung wrote that he had spent a large part of his life studying this work, and he confessed that he owed it a debt that could never be fully repaid. But what exactly did a Swiss psychiatrist find in a medieval Tibetan text that his own science couldn't explain? He found the concept of the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. In his lost notes, Jung realized that we do not have to wait for physical death to experience the bardo. Every time a major part of our identity dies, every time we face a psychological collapse or a moment of total uncertainty, we enter the intermediate state. The Tibetans describe this state as a void filled with peaceful and wrathful deities, vivid, overwhelming projections of the mind itself. Jung's radical insight was that these deities were identical to what he called archetypes. He realized that the Tibetan masters had developed a technology of the soul that allowed them to recognize these archetypes as mental projections rather than external gods. By doing so, they could remain unshakable in the face of their own shadows. Jung saw this as the ultimate goal of psychology, the integration of the shadow and the realization of the self. However, as he went deeper into the Tibetan Dharma, he noticed a recurring figure that seemed to represent the pinnacle of this integration. He called her Sophia, the archetype of divine wisdom. In the Tibetan tradition, this figure of Sophia is not just a concept. She is realized as Prajnaparamita, the mother of all Buddhas and the personification of the perfection of wisdom. Jung was fascinated by how this feminine principle appeared at the end of the psychological journey. He believed that for a man or a woman to become truly whole, they had to move beyond the masculine drive for power and control and surrender to this feminine wisdom of the void. This is the stage where the seeker stops trying to conquer reality and starts trying to understand its true nature. But the path to Sophia is not easy. It requires what Jungian alchemists called the nigredo, the blackening or the dark night of the soul. In the Tibetan tradition, this is mirrored in the terrifying visions of the Cod practice, where the practitioner offers their own ego as a feast for demons. Both Jung and the Himalayan masters knew that you cannot reach the light of wisdom without first embracing the darkness of your own subconscious. The lost pages of Jung's research suggest that he saw the Tibetan Dharma as a more direct and powerful way to achieve this than any Western therapy of his time. He saw it as a science of the void, a way to realize that the things we fear most are actually empty of any inherent existence. To understand the void, or Sunyata as the Tibetans call it, we must first unlearn everything we think we know about reality. For most people, the word void sounds like a terrifying absence, a hole in the universe. But Jung discovered that the Tibetan void is actually a field of infinite potentiality. It is the womb from which all archetypes, all thoughts, and all realities emerge. This is the secret he kept in his private journals, the realization that the mind is not just a container for thoughts, but the very fabric of the multiverse itself. By aligning ourselves with the frequency of this void, we stop being victims of our biological programming and start becoming architects of our own consciousness. To understand the anatomy of the void, we must first confront the greatest fear of the Western mind, the fear of being nothing. In our modern world, we are taught to fill every second with noise, every space with objects, and every silence with thoughts. We believe that if we stop doing, we will cease to exist. But Carl Jung, in the final years of his life, began to realize that this constant activity is actually a defensive mechanism of the ego to avoid the most profound truth of our nature. In his private notes, which many now call the lost pages of his research, Jung admitted that the Tibetan concept of Sunyata was the missing foundation for all psychological health. The Tibetans do not see the void as a vacuum that sucks life away. They see it as the 0 point from which all mathematics, all color, and all sound are born. It is a state of luminous emptiness. When you stop fighting the void, you realize it is not a hole you fall into, but a vast sky that supports you. This realization is the first step toward the stage of Sophia. Sophia is the bridge. In Jung's maps of the psyche, she is the highest manifestation of the anima, the feminine soul image that guides the seeker from the material world into the spiritual realm. But she is also a mirror of Prajnaparamita, the mother of all Buddhas in the Tibetan tradition. Why is this wisdom always portrayed as feminine? Because the feminine principle represents the capacity to receive, to hold, and to allow things to be as they are. Masculine wisdom often seeks to categorize, to divide, and to conquer. But Sophia, the wisdom of the void, simply knows. She is the awareness that remains when all the masks of the ego have been stripped away. She is the silent witness who watches your thoughts without being moved by them. When you align with the stage of Sophia, you are no longer a victim of your emotions. You are the space in which those emotions arise and dissolve. You begin to develop a quality of sacred indifference, not because you don't care, but because you see the dreamlike nature of everything that happens to you. This is where the ancient mysteries of the Himalayas meet the cutting-edge science of our current year, 2026. For a long time, the scientific community dismissed the experience of the void as a mere hallucination or a neurological glitch. But recent breakthroughs in high-resolution neurofeedback and brain mapping have revealed something terrorizing to the old materialist guard. When advanced practitioners of the Tibetan Dharma reach the state of luminous emptiness, their brainwaves do not slow down as they do in deep sleep. Instead, they enter a state of extreme gamma-wave coherence. In this state, the entire brain begins to pulse in a unified rhythm, a frequency of 40 to 80 cycles per second. This is not the signature of a mind that is empty in the sense of being dead. It is the signature of a mind that is hyper-aware, a brain that has transcended the physical boundaries of the individual self. Scientists in 2026 have identified what they call the void network in the human brain. This is a specific circuit that connects the prefrontal cortex with the deeper, more ancient parts of the limbic system. In the average person, this network is dormant, suppressed by the constant chatter of the default mode network, the part of the brain that creates your sense of me and my problems. But when you apply the techniques of Tibetan Tantra, combined with the psychological integration of Jungian shadow work, the default mode network collapses. In that moment of collapse, the void network ignites. You experience a state of consciousness that is both perfectly still and infinitely powerful. You are no longer a separate wave on the ocean. You are the ocean itself, aware of every wave. This is the physiological proof of the stage of Sophia. It is the biological evolution that Jung glimpsed but could not measure in his own time. But why does this state feel like a revelation? Jung believed it was because we are finally returning to our original state of wholeness. The ego is a secondary construction, a survival tool that we have mistaken for our true identity. When we enter the void, we are not losing ourselves, we are losing our limitations. In the Tibetan Bardo teachings, it is said that at the moment of death, the clear light of reality appears. This light is the void. If the seeker has prepared through meditation and psychological integration, they recognize this light as their own true face and find liberation. If they are unprepared, they are terrified by the brilliance of the light and run back into the darkness of a new life, a new ego, and a new cycle of suffering. This is why Jung insisted that the work of the soul is the only work that truly matters. Every moment of your life is a rehearsal for that final encounter with the void. The mystery of Sophia is that she is always there, waiting at the center of the storm. She is the missing link between your daily struggles and your eternal nature. By using the technology of the Tibetan Dharma, the mantras, the visualizations, and the deep breathing, you are effectively hacking your own nervous system to bypass the ego's defenses. You are teaching your brain to be comfortable with the silence. In this silence, the archetypes of the collective unconscious stop being frightening ghosts and start being tools for your transformation. You begin to understand that your traumas, your fears, and your deepest wounds are not fardos to be carried, but the very lead that must be transmuted into the gold of Sophia. The void is the alchemical furnace where this transmutation happens. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the Tibetan path is the presence of wrathful deities. Those fierce, multi-armed beings often depicted surrounded by flames and wearing crowns of skulls. To the casual observer, these appear as demonic figures, but Carl Jung recognized them immediately for what they truly are: powerful projections of the collective unconscious. He understood that these tantric deities are not external gods to be worshipped, but psychological mirrors designed to reflect the hidden forces of our own minds. In Jungian terms, they are archetypes, universal patterns of energy that exist in the deepest layers of the storehouse consciousness. When a practitioner visualizes a wrathful deity, they are not inviting an outside entity. They are confronting their own suppressed anger, their own primal fears, and their own destructive impulses. Jung saw this as a more advanced form of shadow work than anything practiced in Western clinical settings. He realized that by personifying these forces, we can finally begin to integrate them. This process of integration requires a stage that both alchemists and Tibetan masters describe with intense imagery. Jung called it the nigredo, or the blackening of the soul, a period of profound disorientation where the old ego begins to die. In the Himalayas, this is most clearly seen in the radical practice of chod. In this ritual, the practitioner goes to a cemetery or a place of fear and uses meditation to offer their own ego identity as a feast for these perceived demons. This is the ultimate ego suicide. The goal is to realize that the demons of our life, our anxiety, our shame, our failures, only have power over us as long as we treat them as real, independent entities. When you look directly into the eyes of your most terrifying archetypes and realize they are made of the same substance as a dream, they lose their fangs. They transform from predators into protectors. This is the alchemy of the void. The dark lead of your trauma becomes the golden light of Sophia. But how do we apply this to the chaos of our modern lives? Most of us are not meditating in Himalayan graveyards, yet we live in a state of constant psychological bardo, a state of transition, uncertainty, and fear. We are traumatized by a society that demands we be perfect, successful, and always happy. This pressure creates a massive shadow that drains our energy. Jung believed that the only way out was through the realization of the self, and the Tibetans provide the specific technology to achieve this through the understanding of Sunyata, or emptiness. To understand that your traumas are empty does not mean they didn't happen, or that your pain isn't valid. It means that these events do not have an inherent, fixed existence that can define you forever. They are like clouds passing through the vast sky of your mind. If you identify with the clouds, you are tossed by the storm. If you identify with the sky, you are free. Curta o vídeo se essas descobertas sobre a natureza da mente fazem sentido para você, pois isso nos ajuda a levar essa sabedoria a mais pessoas. The therapeutic power of the void lies in its capacity to dissolve the stuckness of our identities. When we are trapped in anxiety, it is because we have made our fear a solid object. We have turned a temporary state of mind into a permanent prison. Jung's research into the unconscious showed that our psychological suffering often stems from our attachment to these fixed images of ourselves. By applying the Tibetan practice of recognizing the interdependence of all things, we begin to see that there is no solid me for the trauma to stick to. This is the therapy of the void. It is a radical form of healing that doesn't just try to fix the ego, but shows you that the ego itself is a mental fabrication, a useful simulation for navigating the world, but not the truth of who you are. As you begin to integrate these shadows and step toward the stage of Sophia, your relationship with the world changes. You no longer see others as enemies or obstacles, but as reflections of the same collective consciousness. This is the birth of what the Tibetans call bodhicitta, the awakened heart of compassion. Jung saw this as the final stage of individuation, where the person is no longer just an isolated individual, but a conscious part of the whole human story. You develop the capacity for radical empathy because you have faced your own wrathful deities and found the golden wisdom hidden within them. If you want to understand how to stabilize this frequency and move into the final transmutation of your daily life, continue with us because the most profound secret of Jung's lost pages is still to come. The path of Sophia is ultimately a path of fierce honesty. It is the courage to admit that the stories we tell about ourselves are just that, stories. Whether they are stories of being a victim, a hero, or a failure, they are all filters that obscure the clear light of the void. In the Tibetan tradition, the realization of emptiness is often called the Great Perfection, because it requires nothing to be added and nothing to be removed. It is the radical acceptance of things as they are. Jung glimpsed this state in his visions, describing it as a moment where the soul becomes a window. Through this window, the eternal wisdom of Sophia shines into the material world. You stop being a seeker of truth and start being the place where the truth reveals itself. This is the mastery that turns every ordinary moment into a sacred act of alchemy. The final transmutation is not something you do, it is something you allow to happen. When Carl Jung spoke of the unus mundus, or the one world, he was describing a state where the boundary between the inner psyche and the outer material world dissolves. In Tibetan Buddhism, this is the realization of the Great Perfection, or Dzogchen. It is the understanding that the light of your own awareness and the light of the stars are made of the same substance. This is the ultimate secret of the stage of Sophia. That wisdom is not a destination you reach, but the very ground you stand on. When you stop being a seeker, you finally become a finders. You realize that you have been looking for your glasses while they were on your face the entire time. The void is not far away in a mountain cave. It is the silence between your heartbeats right now. Living from this state of integrated wisdom means you no longer need to protect your ego because you know it is a hollow mask. You can be fully present in your relationships, your work, and your struggles, but you are no longer defined by them. You have achieved what the alchemists called the lapis philosophorum, the philosopher's stone, which is nothing other than a mind that has been purified in the furnace of the void. You move through the world with a sense of luminous playfulness, knowing that while the dream of life is temporary, the dreamer is eternal. This is the mastery that Jung and the Tibetan masters wanted for all of humanity, a shift from being a victim of fate to being a conscious participant in the cosmic dance of the Dharma. As we reach the end of this journey through the lost pages of Jung and the radical science of the Tibetan void, take a moment to reflect on everything we have shared. We have seen how the stage of Sophia mirrors the perfection of wisdom, how the void is actually a field of infinite neural and spiritual potential, and how facing your inner wrathful deities is the only path to true peace. The void is calling to you, not to swallow you up, but to set you free from the prison of a small, separate self. You are invited to live as a window for the infinite, a vessel for the wisdom of Sophia. I want to know which part of this synthesis most resonated with your own experience. Have you ever felt that moment where the me disappeared and only the vastness remained? Or perhaps you are currently in the stage of nigredo, facing your own shadows? Share your story in the comments below. Your journey and your insights are a vital part of this collective awakening, and hearing from you helps us all understand the many faces of the void. If you have found value in this deep exploration of Jung and the Tibetan Dharma, and if you want to continue uncovering these forbidden maps of the soul, please subscribe to our channel and join this community of dedicated seekers. If you haven't yet, click the bell icon to ensure you never miss our future journeys into the radical science of the mind. Share this video with those who are seeking a deeper meaning in these uncertain times. By sharing this knowledge, you are practicing a form of modern bodhicitta, helping to turn the wheel of Dharma for the benefit of all. If you are ready to apply these teachings and transform your life from the inside out, stay with us.